Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. Today we're talking about that asset that you didn't know that you needed until 2020 showed up and blew everything out of the water. All your plans that you had moving forward, all the things that you thought were going to make you feel rich and wealthy, the things that you'd counted on, etc., etc. Everything was blown out of the water, and there was one asset that if you had invested in it, it was the one thing that paid dividends more than anything else in 2020. I wonder if you can guess what it is. But for me and everything that I've observed, I'm here to tell you that the one asset that 2020 told all of us that we needed was our character. And in life, from my observations of humans, you fall into one of two kinds of characters. Well, people. You're the kind of person who focused all your energy and time into cultivating financial and worldly wealth, or you focus the majority of your energy in building your character. And this was the year that showed you more than ever that when everything blew up, it was your character that has got us this far in 2020. And you might be saying, yes, but Lee, if I've all of those worldly possessions that I have cultivated, I've got lots of money, and I've got my mortgage paid off, and I've got a really thriving business, etc., etc. Sure, and that's awesome for you. But what happens when the people around you are starting to get sick, or you're starting to get sick? You're feeling the mental strain of having to adapt to the changing laws and to the incapabilities of the people around you to manage their own stress. So that's when it doesn't matter how much money you have. What matters is the character that you have, and it is your number one asset in 2020 and will continue to be your number one asset moving forward. The world has changed, my friends, and in the next episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about fatigue. And the level of fatigue that we're all experiencing right now. No matter how successful or devastated our businesses and our careers are, there is a level of fatigue that we're all experiencing from 2020 that can only be propped up by the character that we've invested in. So what do I mean by character? Your character is the way that you've been put together, the kind of person that you are, what your value structures are, what your belief structures are, how you execute on what your thoughts are and what your intentions are. They're the things like integrity and niceness and authenticity, and are you an asshole or not? All of these very many different kinds of things that make up your character come together to determine the kind of way that you move within the world. And this year, more than ever, the way that you've cultivated your character is going to bring returns, is going to pay dividends on the amount that you've invested in building your character. Without a doubt, we've seen that people have fallen as the bottom has fallen out of the way that they had built their career, the way that they had built their business, the way that they had built their on social media, their presence. We're starting to see that people don't care about celebrities anymore. People don't care about Instagram influencers anymore. People care about connection and authenticity and people who will tell them the truth. People care about Are you genuine in the way that you're speaking to me? These are all things that come from character rather than physical assets. And more than ever, these mean something. So, how do you find resources if you feel that you haven't invested enough in building your character? What are the resources that you can invest your time into building character? So there's a lot of free resources, and I'm only going to speak about free resources today. But the one thing that I want to say before I go into what some of these resources are is it's important for you to understand that you can't build character overnight. It takes understanding, it takes practice, it takes open-mindedness, it takes a disconnection from needing to group think. You've got to sit yourself down and say, what kind of a character do I want to build for myself? For me, I went through that process about 15 years ago, and I legitimately had a conversation with myself and said, listen, you're not a shit person, but you're not an intentional person either. So what kind of a person do you want to cultivate? What kind of a character do you want to cultivate within yourself and aspire to be like? And I sat down and I thought about it and wrote it out and live by those character markers today, and they inform my life currencies. So if that's what the kind of thing that you want to do, somebody that I would recommend you starting with, if you really don't know how to go about doing any of this stuff, is go check out the content of Dr. Jordan Peterson. Now, I didn't discover Jordan Peterson until a couple of years ago. I think he's a wonderful thinker. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I do find it very intriguing the way that he explores ideas. But the reason I want to send you towards his content is he has a book called 12 Rules for Life. And in that, he goes through and talks about 12 different things you should be doing to build a good life, and they're ways to build your character. 12 different ways that you should be using as a foundation to build your character. The next thing that I would encourage you to do is try and pick podcasts and movies and read books and things like that that will encourage you to build character. So a part of that is understanding the parts of your character that you want to let go of and you perhaps feel ashamed of. And that's a very normal part of the process. I would encourage you to move towards a podcast that Brene Brown releases every week. It is fantastic. Brene Brown has a fabulous podcast. I think it's called Unlocking Us. Check that podcast out. Another thing I would direct you towards is any podcast that focuses on open, unbiased conversation. So just the exploration of ideas where people can disagree with each other. This is important because it helps you understand how people with different characters approach each other. And that's where you can use as resources to say, well, I kind of like this person and I like what they stand for. It's different to what I stand for, but I can get on board with that. Then you can start the journey of understanding how to build that part of your character. We have seen in the coffee industry people who think that they believe in something simply because it's uncool not to believe in it, but they haven't gone through the process of building their character up enough where they understand why they support certain social justice movements and why it's important to get behind a certain employer or not get behind a certain employer. They move with the group rather than moving as an individual. People who have gone through the effort of building their character don't attach themselves to specific ideologies. They connect themselves to their own character and have confidence in doing that. And that is absolutely something that I want everybody to aspire to. The idea that you've gone through the process of knowing what you stand for, knowing who you are, knowing what builds your character, and then you can move through the world with a kind of confidence that is unwavering. You never think that you know anything. You are open to learning constantly open to learning and welcome in new information. Now, I want to finish on the idea of group thinking. I want to specifically finish on this part in relation to the discussion about character, because I believe that group thinking has in the past, is currently, and will continue to do damage to us as a community, whether it be professionally or in your personal life. I see this going on social media, and I'm confident you've seen it too. This idea that we shame each other into believing certain things because not to do so means that we're against good things for the world. And when you build your character and you understand what it is you stand for, and you can understand why you believe certain things, it leaves you open to understanding the agenda that different groups have. Now, understanding the agenda that different groups have, even if you're a part of that group, is incredibly important to understand what you're signing up for. I recently, on my new podcast, Love and Other Delusions, that we're in recordings for at the moment, spoke to somebody who was a devout Christian when she was growing up, and her parents were not religious at all. She was so hell-bent on becoming a nun. She was excited about the idea of being married to Jesus. As she grew and became a historical writer, she started to realize that there were things that the Christian faith that she was a part of, she didn't agree with them. And it was her openness and her staunch kind of commitment to building her character that allowed her the openness to recognize, as she became more flexible with that, she became able to recognize the things that she didn't agree with. And so we giggled in saying that she is faith fluid, and she became open to understanding that this faith that I'm a part of, I'm going to take the things that work for me, and I'm going to build relationships with other faiths and take the great things that feed me living a good, compassionate, empathetic, generous, successful life. And I'm going to have all of those things come together to build the character that I choose to move through this world with. And as an industry, we have seen the decimation and the correction of who is a business owner, who is a coffee professional, and who isn't those things, mostly out of circumstance. And so as you look at how you're going to prepare for 2021, if building character isn't a journey that you have deliberately gone on, I would invite you to go through the process of deciding what that looks like for you, and how you're being constrained through group thinking as we move into more tumultuous times, that your character building can help support you as you move through this in a hopefully more flow-filled state. I hope this has been helpful. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.